May 2023, the Bourbon Trail in Kentucky.
Hi, this is Janet, and I'm Sly. Back in 2016, we both decided it was time to stop working, buy an RV, and start traveling the country and the world. And once the RV was pretty much the way we wanted it, we started our travels, and we've been doing it ever since. So join us as we explore this country and the world, and maybe we can even meet up with some of you along the way.
We're on our way from Memphis, Tennessee to just south of Louisville, Kentucky to experience the Bourbon Trail. We found an RV park that's well centered for our trips, but I'll tell you, it's a little tight, but it's relatively inexpensive, so there's that. We start the Bourbon Trail with a visit from Mary Ann, a friend of ours that we met while we were down in Texas. Mary Ann lives here, so she gave us some good tips. And she also brought over some of her bourbons for us to sample. So I guess the first bourbon tasting happens right in our RV. Oh boy, what a night. Might have been a hell of a night, but the next day we went out to Preservation Distillery. I was not impressed with this distillery. First of all, it's very high-end. I think the cheapest thing they had was like $190. We still had a drink though, and the bourbon, well, it was good. From Preservation, we headed out to Heaven Hill Distillery. This place was much bigger, much nicer. We did not do a distillery tour because frankly, we've done a bunch already and we don't need to walk through a distillery. We know how the process works. We're more interested in tasting the different bourbons. And this place, well, it makes Elijah Craig, which is yummy, I will tell you that, and also Larceny. It makes others as well, but boy, those two are really good. The distillery had a reception center, and inside there was a nice little museum-like display with all sorts of history about Heaven Hill and some of the bourbons that they produce. The various displays were cool to look at, and on the upside, it's free. Just walk on through. After you finish, head on upstairs and go to the Five Brothers Bar and Kitchen. Unlike Preservation, which wants you to do a full tour if you want a tasting, this place does tastings. And really, this is what we came here to do. We want to taste different bourbons and different ryes. We just don't want to go out and drink. We want to taste and find out what we really like. After the tasting, we went downstairs to the store and did some shopping. We restocked our liquor cabinets and we got a sampler that we're going to do at some other point in time. We started the next day off alcohol-free with a visit to the Bernheim Forest. The Bernheim Forest Park is famous for its forest giants. This park has 3 of them, and these are really nothing more than statues made out of wood, but they're pretty big and they are very, very cool to look at. Unlike other statues made of wood, these are not made out of one big chunk that's sculpted. These are made out of planks nailed together on a framework. Janet and I both enjoyed a leisurely walk through the park, enjoying the forest giants and of course enjoying the nature in this park. There's a couple of lakes on this park, so of course turtles and ducks were the big thing to look at. But in addition to that, there's also other sculptures located around the park. The sculptures, the turtles, the forest giants, all of these made for a great little walk. It was easy and there was lots and lots to look at. But of course, we're in bourbon country, so Jim Beam Distilling Company is next on our list. Now I'll be honest with you, Jim Beam is not one of my favorite distilleries, but they do have some very good bourbons and ryes, and it's worth going over there to sample them anyway. Janet and I each did a flight of 3. That way we can get a better sampling of what's available there. I did 3 different Basil Haydens, while Janet stuck to the Knob Creek brands. All 3 were good, just not to my taste. So we left there and headed on to a winery. Yes, this is bourbon country, but hey, they also have wineries and distilleries, so we decided, why not? let's check out a winery in the middle of bourbon country. And the verdict? It was good. Of course, their grapes came from California and Washington and Oregon, but they made the wine there, so it's their winery. We enjoyed a sampler and ended up walking out of there with a couple of bottles. So, a winery in bourbon country. The next day, we start off our exploration with a visit to Mary Ann's house. This time, Mary Ann gave us a sampling of Pappy Van Winkle, 20 years old. Don't even ask what this bourbon costs, but it's good, and not very many people have found one or had a chance to taste one, so we feel privileged. Thank you, Mary Ann. But soon we were off to downtown Louisville, and our first stop, Angel's Envy Distillery. Janet and I both love Angel's Envy, and it is surely one of our favorite drinks. We of course did a sampling of some of the ones you don't find often. The first one came straight out of a port barrel for a finish. The next one we tried came out of a Caribbean rum cask for a finish. And the last one came out of a Madeira cask for the finish. Let me tell you, that last one was good. We thoroughly enjoyed it. Too bad I can't find that very often. Or maybe not, because we would just drink it. After the sampling at Angel's Envy, we headed off to an Irish pub where we decided to stop for a little bit of a lunch. The food there, well, it was very, very yummy, and we needed some food in us because we were not quite done sampling yet. While there, we also took some time to explore downtown Louisville. It's a neat little city, or at least the sections that we looked at. We enjoyed the old buildings, we enjoyed some of the many, many murals on the wall, including this one at Rabbit Hole, and of course, the horse racing theme. It's all over, in addition to the bourbon theme, which is also all over. But eventually, we did end up at the Rabbit Hole, which is the last distillery for tasting today. I like the layout of the Rabbit Hole Distillery. As you walk through the halls, you can actually look inside the distillery and see some of the work that's being done to bottle those excellent, excellent bourbons. Also has a gift shop, which is standard. But upstairs, there is a bar with a wonderful view looking out over the city of Louisville. And of course, we had our tasting. We enjoyed the Rabbit Hole bourbons. Definitely not my favorite, but good anyway, because we polished it all off. After that, we explored the distillery a little bit more and enjoyed looking at these beautiful bottles that they make for some of their specialty bourbons and ryes. These ain't cheap, but they are pretty, and I was actually tempted to buy one, but eventually opted against it. And with that tasting, we ended the day and ended our time at the Rabbit Hole Distillery in Louisville, Kentucky. The next morning, we headed back down to Louisville, Kentucky. Well, it wasn't actually the morning. It was more like early afternoon. We enjoyed the buildings and the art and headed on off to Michter's. This was a new distillery for us. We hadn't had Michter's before. This place was very cool. Of course, we did our standard tasting because that's what we're doing. We're tasting all these things to see what we like. We enjoyed our tasting while listening to music played on an actual record player. The album the guy chose was the Rolling Stones, so that was different. The top shelf had 3 whiskeys to try, the upper end, and these were from $1,000 to $1,400 a taste. That's just a little too rich for my taste. Next, we went straight across the street to Barrels and Billets. Now, this was a place that had more reasonably priced whiskeys. This was like $10 for the entire tasting, the cheapest we've done so far. And to tell you the truth, yeah, it's kind of what you expect for $10. And that, of course, was the end of our tastings for the day. So, we wandered around Louisville some more, enjoying some of the architecture and some of the cool buildings, and we came across this, Barbarella. Go figure. Anyway, on we went to Stevie Ray's Blues Bar. This, of course, was not for a tasting. We just wanted to sit down, relax, and listen to some good music. we hung around there for a few hours. We enjoyed a little bit of Russell's Reserve, which was very good. And this bottle, and honestly I can't even remember what it was, but it was good. Either way, we had a great time that evening.
On the track for...
That's right, we're at Churchill Downs. I mean, how can you go to Kentucky, especially Louisville, without going to Churchill Downs? Our friends, Marion and Randy, invited us for a day at the races. Now, this is not something that Janet and I normally do. We've gone to a few horse races, but not that many, and honestly, we don't know horses. Janet studied the program to place her bets intelligently. Me, I picked the horses with the prettiest names. Of course, Janet placed the bets even though she could barely see over the counter. As far as betting goes, we did pretty good. We won something on every race. But at the end, we did not make money, so forget about it. Racing was fun, but Willett Distillery was our stop for the last day of bourbon tasting in the Louisville area. From its beginnings in the old Willett barn to what it is today, which is one huge place to visit. We of course did our standard tasting with a flight of their bourbons, and they were pretty good. We actually found one that was worth buying for us. Our next stop on this last day in Louisville is the Bardstown Bourbon Company. The Bardstown Bourbon Company has a really neat little bar, and when you ask for a flight for tasting, they give you a nice flight for tasting. Now, these bourbons and ryes were good, but they weren't exactly to our taste. But still, we had a good time tasting all of them and then moved on to our last stop at Lux Row Distillery. Once we got to Lux Row, according to the internet, the place was supposed to be opened. Unfortunately, it was closed. So, that's it for Louisville. And that's it for this video. Janet and I both hope that you enjoyed this video, enjoyed our tour of Louisville and Bourbon Country. As usual, if you look down in the description below, you'll find a link to all of the places that we visited, so you don't have to work as hard to find them as we did. Now, it's time to move on. And although we're leaving Louisville, we're not quite done with the bourbon tasting yet. And so, with that little hint, we hope that you join us as we explore our next stop.